Okay, nice.
All right, bro. All right. Yeah, man. So I guess doing it's easier with the way TV. We have our guest here, Hugo. He's administrator of an Instagram account that shows a lot of great leftist protests happening in France and around the world. Yeah, another young grassroots journalist just like me. You know, yeah. So I'm coming live from Pure Lafayette Hospital. Homie's at his mom's. Um, I think the first question I got for you is like I would say, how did you like decide how did you kind of get into documenting like protests in France and everything?
Well, first of all, I'm not a journalist myself.
I know you're more of an activist.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I mean, I've got interested because it's not a normal election. I mean, it's not the all type of elections
Yeah.
that you can imagine. Like in the United States, you have Democrats or Republicans, or like in other countries that you have social democrats or liberals, which is these two-party systems. Now the French elections are special because most of their the, this fight is between neoliberals and far right.
Yeah.
I mean that's a thing. So you don't find it nowadays so much in the mainstream, because normally, like Nordic countries, you get social democrats or liberals, which is normal. But you got countries that it's literally far right against neolibs.
Yeah.
So this is a serious matter, and it shows us what's the political arena right now.
And what as for like your current president, Emmanuel Macron, what faction would you say he kind of like represents? Is he more neoliberal, more left, more right?
Well,
In comparison, I guess to
yes.
Marine Le Pen, who's like well-known far right figure in Europe, like one of the most
Yes.
like well-known.
It's Emmanuel Macron. Let's say it started as a liberal, as a pro-European liberal, moderate, which he still tries to, and I think he achieves to look like. But in fact, what liberals always try to pretend, it's that they are the moderate voice of the state, the moderate
the voice of reason.
hand. Yeah, the moderate hand that regulates things. In fact, that's what they pretend to show us, but in fact, they are not the regulatory hand. They are just they're gonna start with 2 or 3 social programs, liberal programs, and thereafter all their mandate and policies gonna be focused on multinationals benefits, so neoliberal policies, and they're gonna extend them until the end of their mandate. So I think Macron, he's a neoliberal, like all the presidents that we have in the European Union. When I say the European Union, I mean even social democrats. They pretend to be socialists, but in fact, they are just neoliberal painted with red. And that's the problem, that people should see it and they do not.
Yeah, I feel you. I mean, in fact, I find it's actually quite popular, I guess, like in Europe, not so much here in North America, like socialism, anything kind of left traditionally is kind of shunned.
I mean,
I find that in Europe, like the people are a little more receptive to those ideas and they kind of understand it more, just to be honest with you.
Yeah. I mean, I guess in the United States,
like I'm in Canada.
Good. In Canada, sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, well, I guess in North America, um, social democrats are considered to be very left wing, left leaning.
Yeah, like Bernie
Here,
Sanders.
yes,
Yeah.
for us here, they are just the mainstream red painted neoliberals that they start with a speech, social program, working class, and thereafter
Yeah.
they win the election. They forget about, but it's normal. It's in their nature. I mean, social democracy has a long history of betrayal to other left-wing organizations
Yeah.
and social organizations.
No, exactly. I see what you mean. What about I mean, moving on, I guess, like, what about Marine Le Pen? Like, what do you compared to like some other far right figures and stuff that kind of sprung up after like the immigration crisis or like migrant crisis, as they say. Lots of people from Africa, Afghanistan, migrating to Europe because it's the closest stable like nation or like group of nations, I guess. Like Marine Le Pen, how does she kind of well, what does she represent? What is she talking about? That you think maybe drawing like working class like French people or just any class of French people towards her in the election.
Yes. First of all, Marie Le Pen, she's coming from a wealthy family. Actually, she's coming from this Le Pen clan.
So she's rich. She's
Yeah,
like she's like upper middle
yes,
class type.
absolutely. She's one of the elites of many French oligarchs. I mean, his father was in the French Legion. He fought in, if I'm not wrong, fought in the Algerian War of Independence against the Algerian nationalists.
Oh, so he fought.
And
They fought in the Algerian War of Independence against Algeria.
yeah.
Oh, geez, that's crazy.
Yes, and
So
this
they're like
you,
pro-colonialism
you
because they're literally fighting to preserve
yes,
colonialism in that war. Yeah.
exactly, and you can see that you with this example, you just have enough arguments to see what kind of background these people are coming from and what kind of people represents first of all, and not lie to anybody, but they represent the wealthy class, the wealthy French
Let's
class.
see.
So that's the main factor that they will always want to have support, and because they and second of all, they attract people from middle classes that they think that they're not wrong, but they just choose the bad path. How to explain that? They talk about, well, France, it's in a period of the decade, and yeah, they try to tell to the young people that we are a failure, so we need a strong man. But that's not a that's not a good argument. I mean, the problem it's not that we are in decadence. We are not. It's just that capitalism is in decadence. I mean,
Yeah,
or
like so they have that traditionalist kind of like view that a lot of like rich people have, where it's like if you're not rich, it must be because you didn't work as hard or you don't care, or which obviously isn't true. In fact,
yes,
unfortunately, I think it's kind of common in most
yeah,
capitalist countries to like want to be rich, unfortunately. So a lot of people do try very hard and they don't always get as far as they ought to.
mm,
So yeah.
yes. But I mean, they do attract a lot of people of the middle classes, but they also attract a huge amount
Yeah.
of people from the working class, which is
Yeah.
a terrible thing because that means that communist parties are not doing their work properly, and anarchists are too busy doing whatever, because we need to be realistic about that. These two positions, these two ideologies, communism and anarchism, are not doing much to attract working class. I mean,
Yeah.
to get class conscience, to work on it. They just let this job to be done by the far right, which they do it with a,
That's what
with
you
a
mean.
lot of
It kind of
pleasure.
and I mean that's also I think
And
quite a common theme, I guess, in a lot of neoliberal like democracies, like in everything is everybody's kind of fighting for the working class and trying to draw in the working class as much as they can. You know, because like, you know, they're the ones who like make everything and
yes,
do everything, right? So, you know, yeah. So like, you know, if you're able to
yes,
kind of have the working class as your base, like just like Trump in the election, you know, then you kind of can control the country and do what you want as long as you kind of keep them on your side or whatever. That's something I think a trend, another trend I've kind of noticed
yes,
too is you know, especially in not only in Europe but also here in North America, where the right wing seems to be getting the working class a lot more than the leftists seem to be able to in certain ways. Like the left is also
it's
actually I think more than ever now also drawing a lot of working class people and stuff. You can see a lot of labor
mhm.
movements and things in the US. You get people like you got people like AOC,
Yes,
you know,
no, yes. I mean, absolutely. I'm not. It's important to remark that left wing, I mean, organizations or trade unions and all these organizations, they are doing some real work on it. So it's important to visualize that. But at the same time, they didn't change much their tactics, and that's why the far right it's rising. Why it's far right rising in Europe, especially in France? Well, that's not a secret. Communist parties, after the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, they lost support, public support, but they also
yeah.
failed to continue the struggle. Um,
So actually on that,
they've been
sorry to
stuck
interrupt, I guess, but
in
what would
on.
you say the state of the communist and anarchist movement, not necessarily like the party, political party, but just like the state of like those movements of those like ideas, how would you say that they're doing? Are they is like left wing ideology flourishing in France, or is it going down, or is it, you know, like do you feel like it's like in a state to kind of go head to head with the right wing, you know, like not only like on the street and stuff and demonstrations, but you know, in like ideologically in elections, like kind of, you know.
Yes, I guess if we have to take social movements in the street, they are not doing. They will never get head to head with the right wing. That's for sure, because first of all, we have the mainstream media, which will always criminalize the youth. I know it for personal stuff, because I myself, I'm in a social organization, and we always get a bad reputation and bad
Yeah.
like bad publicity
Right.
about our daily work. So I mean, it's normal. The state will do whatever it's in their power to silence us and to say we are the evil. This with spontaneous, non-centralized leadership organization. Now, the second one, political parties. Well, you know, in a democracy, left-wing parties in France, they don't get much votes. I mean, even if they were doing a coalition of left-wing parties, they wouldn't have been able to set on head-to-head with the right wing,
Yeah.
because that's something I've observed for many years, and it's that French people generally tend to be voting right wing. And now,
Yes.
far right, which is annoying,
Of course.
but it's what you get when you got liberals and social democrats 40 years in power
Like,
since 1958,
something.
and they don't stop doing neoliberal politics and promising things that never come. So people get tired about political parties and they vote the most effective option,
I feel you.
which is ignorant, but is the most effective, far right and populism.
Yeah, I feel you. I find that a thing that like the right kind of does well is appealing to the esteem and to like the and almost like healing the low self-esteem that a lot of like people have, you know, like this is France, remember all the cool shit that France has done like forever,
Yeah,
or you know, this is Canada, imagine like you know, remember all the cool stuff that Canada's done, all the good that Canada's done, and they kind of more like
yes,
appeal to that. But you know, in the left, they're like, well, you see the problem with nation states are, and they kind of start with that, and then people are like, wait, there's nothing, you know, because where people, how do I say it? You kind of have to meet people where they're at, right? And I find that the left, like, because we're so academic and we're also so, we have a lot of vigor, we have a lot of like, we really believe in what we believe, and you know, because we have really good ideas and everything, but we kind of, I think, tend to not always see that other people may not just may not understand those ideas, and like you actually have to like, I guess, find a way to make it more understandable to people. Um,
yeah.
so I think that could
Well,
maybe
no,
be a reason why, because some people might say like, oh, you know, like left-wing people, they're anarchists, you know, they're also stuck up or whatever. That's something for students or
yes,
what. They have like this almost like stereotypes and
that's,
stigmas, but you know, which are unfair, completely unfair. You know what I mean? Because
yeah,
it's not, you know.
but it's in fact, it's something that it's not a surprise. I mean, um, I myself, uh, I have been in a communist party, which I've left for personal, that I wasn't, yes, I wasn't agreeing with some of the things they were saying. One of them, the way to speak to the people, because normally communist parties tend to have a very difficult way to express their ideas, and with a complicated, hard to understand language that normal people, or I'm sorry, ignorant people, will be impossible to understand
Yeah.
or very hard.
Is that-
So
I find,
don't talk about
'cause I find that a
working
lot
class.
of people don't actually really understand how capitalism works, like its basic mechanisms. You know what I mean?
Yes. I
Um,
mean, there is people that even don't know what type of society they live in,
yeah,
or if it's called capitalism or communism. I mean, that's
because like,
something you're gonna tell them Putin is communist, and everybody gonna say yes, it's communist. I mean, it's not,
but yeah, I find that that's very very often. Um, I think another thing too, I'd say is what like currently right now, what are some like very like you know the election's coming up, blah blah blah, but like what are some things that like average French people are really still concerned about? You know what I mean? And also another question I have is, you know, the yellow vest protests that were like famous like in 2019 and stuff, you know, over fuel costs and things like that. Are those still going? Is that still going on, or are they still like fighting for that? Or yeah,
um, can you repeat the first question?
yeah, for sure, I got you.
Yeah,
Um,
I understood the second one, but not the first.
I was saying,
Sorry.
yeah, so I was saying like, what are some like, what are some like, I guess like the most like talked about issues and stuff right now for like the French election for like average people, like what are they going through right now? You know what I mean?
Mm.
That I guess like, that you know that you see like the candidates I guess talking about, but just like not even only that, but like what do you like you know you've gone to like a couple of like protests at senior house abroad and everything, and I'm like what are you hearing people on the street like talk about? Like what are they concerned about?
Mm. Well, there are, first of all, like, well, I can speak for the youth. Most of it's
Wait, how
about,
old are you?
hmm?
If you don't mind me asking, how old are you, by the way?
I'm 21.
21? I'm 24. Hey. Let's go.
Nice.
Alright.
Yes. The first concern is how you're gonna end up paying your studies,
Yeah.
how you're gonna make it through depression, through I don't know, social matters, big wages. I mean, to pay food, to pay rent, to pay bills.
Yeah.
That's the main thing that everybody talks
Yeah.
about. And the main problem is prices. Prices are going up, and you're earning the same, but prices are going up. You cannot even afford a normal life. I mean, a normal routine.
Yeah.
You have to exploit yourself, and even though exploiting yourself, you're not making true. So that's the problem that, first of all, it concerns everybody, especially the youth and the most aged people. They don't know if they're gonna stop working one day because they are talking about to take off the how to call it the when you have 65 years and you stop
Retirement.
working.
Retirement.
Yes,
The English word for it.
they want to take off the retirement.
Mm.
So that is madness. It's madness.
Like they want to, the French government, they're proposing to get rid of retirement, like man, like,
Mm. They don't do it publicly, but they have even more neoliberal ministers and people in this party that it's called La République en Marche.
Hmm.
I do like to call it the tyranny in march.
March of the Tyrants.
But yes,
Really.
but there is some special clowns in this political party that talk about it should be nice to take off public welfare, public health system, and they've done it. I mean, with the healthcare system, they've took out a lot of ambulances, a lot of beds from the hospitals. So we're gonna end up like Guatemala or El Salvador, and that's maybe what they want to turn our country in um,
Yeah.
a neoliberal paradise where you can be easily poor and only the rich will benefit from your slavery
I see what
because
you
they're
mean.
gonna have the means of production.
Are they doing
And
like the
use,
traditional stuff where they like are trying to give like tax breaks to corporations and like, you know, like all that, all like the traditional stuff,
exactly,
right? Yeah.
exactly. But it's a slow process. It's not something that like conservatives do it with a lot of so easily. They try to pretend that behind this it's for the people, for the
And
welfare,
actually
for
on
the
that note,
state.
how are like your traditional like your regular conservatives, how are they reacting to Marine Le Pen? How are they like how do they view that?
Um,
Like the far right?
it's
Do they even view it as far
it's
right, or do they just feel like she's like more conservative? That's
mm,
kind of
I don't vote myself because it's just the democratic bourgeois
yeah.
elections. I mean it doesn't make sense to vote, but I thought between Zemmour and Le Pen. Mm, in France, they love to make
Yeah.
TV debates.
Yeah.
And I was hoping for a debate between Zemmour and Le Pen just to have a laugh because I can't imagine what are going to be the subjects. He's better racist than her or what?
Yeah.
I mean, what's the subject? What's the difference? And in fact, there's too little difference. I mean, all conservatives in France have voted for Le Pen, and they calling people to go to vote for Le Pen. Now you can find some surprises, and
So
you have
that's
conservatives.
kind of become the conservative option now.
Yes,
Yes.
but now you have some conservatives because in France you have two types of conservatives: the normal ones and the Gaullist, those who love the times of Charles de Gaulle. So the Gaullists, they are Republicans
I see.
and they don't like they pretend that they don't like the far right, and they call to vote Macron, but in fact they're the same. And
I'm gonna have
the
to move.
thing is,
This person doesn't really give a shit about what I'm doing. No, she doesn't under. I don't. Please leave me the fuck alone, bro. You've just been randomly talking to me the entire time I've been here. I don't know you. I don't want to know you. I shouldn't have to get rude, bro. Sorry. I apologize.
don't worry.
It's just some people they have problems and they just don't care. I don't know. Somebody who's like, so what? You're just like, what the fuck? Like, who are you, bro?
Yes, but there's strange people everywhere.
Yeah, it is what it is, man. You gotta be patient. You gotta be chill because it's like, I don't know. All right. Yeah, you never know what anyone's going through, you know.
Yes, and the last question that yes. And the last question that you made and I wanted to answer is the fuel protest and all the yellow vest movement.
Mm.
I mean, it's since 2018, it went on. I mean, it continued. The problem is that as it was one of the first protests in the world, like not the first one, but to be clear, it was the first. I mean, there was an explosion. It started in France. Thereafter, it went to Lebanon. It went to Ecuador, to Chile, to Hong Kong, to Catalonia, to Algeria, to Iraq.
Yeah.
It expanded quickly. I mean, it was really an international event that many countries saw, and they wanted to do the same like in France. I mean, for 10 cents, that they put the price 10 cents higher to the fuel, everybody went in the street. But this was the top of the iceberg, because the problems were even more.
So they raised gas prices by 10 cents and everybody took to the streets.
Exactly. And that was the top of the iceberg, because in fact there were a lot of problems, like the most important, the French centralist state. We should question if France should be a centralist state or federation, a confederation, to vote a sixth republic, that people has more power and they can decide to write a new constitution based on the people. And third and most important, if they should do a direct democracy, or if the president shall continue to have so much powers. I mean, all of the powers.
Sure.
And people got mad and they took the streets. And it's obvious that France, since the May 68 uprisings, it never experienced such an event again. So it's important that the Yellow Vest event was a wake up for the French people again. The problem with this movement, which it was really nice, and one of the reasons I have my Insta page is because I was trying to make propaganda about. I mean, that's why I have my Instagram.
Yeah. You had a sick name. It was a circle non-responsible or something, like service unavailable or something. I'm like, that kind of goes hard. That kind of goes hard. Yeah.
Yes, and
I think I've been following you for like about a year now, and I'm like, this is like my main source for like you're like my main source for like French politics and everything. So
yes, they are really nice. They do really nice reports and covers, and I guess French people. I mean, the problem with these protests, which it was a nice event, the problem is always when there is not an organization behind. I don't talk about political parties.
Yeah.
I talk about people's organization when there is not to say military discipline, but if there's not an amount of discipline in this movement, because they are spontaneous, and the spontaneous movement, it can go for 1 week, 1 month, but also it can end one day, because I went in spontaneous protests that literally they ended up 4 hours after. So that's the main problem. Or we start to organize ourselves, or with spontaneity, we will not succeed anything that we are demanding.
Yeah, no, yeah, for sure. I noticed that that definitely is kind of the risk with like with grassroots movements in general, and with especially spontaneous movements in general. People just take to the streets, and it could.
Yes,
Yeah,
I mean,
it could be a lot of great ideas. It could even be like the
yes,
and stuff to a lot of things, but it may not last the amount of time it actually needs to, or it could even last too long. Like a great example of that is Iran had an uprising, I think, last year, and
yes,
and that lasted for maybe a week or a month, but people literally just took to the streets and just started like fighting the government, like straight up, just so like but yeah,
I mean,
if that kept going, they could have probably overthrown the government, because it was like literally that spontaneous as people walking out of their house and just seeing what's going on in the apartment. Which I think also, by the way, I think is I think really good, and I hope that keeps happening. And I find that almost unique to, I guess, like what they would call like the old world or whatever, or I'm not sure what you to call, but I hope that that's something that continues, because I find in Canada spontaneous movements don't for often they're very few and far between, but they don't they also have to always become like an official thing, you know what I mean, or like whatever. They don't like stay spontaneous, I find.
Well, I mean, spontaneity, it's good. The problem is that you must be spontaneous and organized. If you're just spontaneous, well, you're gonna end up in jail, identified, and next day you're gonna get out from the jail, but with fine. So that's the main problem we have in Europe, and especially in the world. French protests, the Yellow Vest movement. The problem is that it was spontaneous, and there was not a centralized leadership, and it's good to not have a centralized leadership, because like that to avoid going to jail. But sometimes it's good to have it, because there is a voice. It doesn't need to be the leader of the movement, but it can be a voice to guide the people.
I see what you mean.
Which is important. And when people around the world saw the French example, they just took it without making any critics, to say, we're gonna take the example, but we're gonna be more organized and with a voice to give the people. They've just done the same. They were non-centralized and spontaneous.
Yeah.
And they ended up, well, fighting the government, but not with many changes.
Yeah, it's not always
from all the protests of 2019. The only one that I can say they've achieved, and they still have to fight, but they achieved, is in Chile with the new constitution and with the new president. But even though it's just another puppet of Occidental interests, so they still have to fight.
So I want to know more about and speaking of also staying on the protest topic, I kind of want to know more about the thing at Sorbonne University. Like the students at the university were protesting. Do you know what were some of the demands and reasons?
I personally don't know the reasons. I mean, one of the demands that they were they were trying to expose, but the reasons were clear. It was universities are a public space for debate and organization, especially for the youth. So people that normally are against intellectuals and organized people like the far right,
Yeah.
they are normally, in general, universities are a component of resistance always, everywhere around the world, against authoritarianism and oppression. So when they heard that maybe Le Pen or Zemmour or Macron would go there, they're gonna be meet
Yeah.
with resistance from the students, which they are organized and they have a clear message. We don't want far right or populists to come here to talk about how the youth is feeling. If you want to come to see how the youth is feeling and living, make an interview to the youth, not interview populists or far right people. So that was one of the reasons they've done that, and they've done it successfully until the real police, the mobile brigade from the French gendarmerie came and tear gassed everybody and pepper sprayed the shit out of our comrades. So it's really embarrassing and sad, but that's the level
But you know,
of
it's not embarrassing.
European democracy.
It's not embarrassing for us or for people that, you know, want a better world. It's more embarrassing for them because
Yes.
every time there's
no,
I agree. No, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. Like
I'm saying that it's embarrassing for them, for
Yeah.
the government, for the system.
anytime there's any bit of resistance, like, you know, they just kind of run in, start beating people and tear gassing everything. And they just kind of resort to
Yes.
like object physical violence rather than just even letting the protests just kind of happen and letting people go home and then do their thing, you know. And I think also a common, I want to also address maybe like one I almost left open is that when people go home from these protests, they actually kind of continue the work afterwards. I think it's a common misconception from not so much from right-wing people, but from your centrists, your center people, that people just kind of like, they do a protest and they go home and what happens, right? But it's, you know, a lot happens.
Yes.
Actually, most of the work happens after you go home. You know what I mean? And,
Yes.
and you know,
Well,
yeah.
you know, I went to a lot of protests.
Yeah.
And what I can say is that it starts well, but thereafter everybody says, well, gotta go home, gotta have dinner, gotta have to eat with the family, gotta go to work, maybe homeworks. So when you have like, it's like a fairy tale that reality comes to you at the end of the story, at the end of the fairy tale. So it's sad because you're fighting for your freedoms, and thereafter you remember that routine is better. Gotta go to eat and sleep.
Yeah.
With this attitude, we will never succeed. But I'm not. I mean, I try to keep myself positive because this is not. I mean, it's not our fault. Me too. I had this idea once. I mean, I'm guilty.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is that these are matters that you have to train yourself when you're reading ideology.
Sorry, I gotta hold you up there just because my laptop battery is low.
All right.
Yeah, my bad. So, and they don't let you have cords and stuff, so I gotta. But yeah, I want to say thank you so much. Maybe we can continue tomorrow or something. And
all right.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
it was a pleasure for me. It was nice. So see you tomorrow.
All right, peace, man. Thank you, Hugo. Thank you so much. All right.
Thank you. Bye. You're welcome. Bye.